overall, in terms of consumer trends, when we look at just a lot of the shifts that we've seen with COVID, AVOD is a huge piece of the puzzle for us in terms of how we plan our overall TV video mix. And I think everyone is looking at that more broadly. And the reality is it's a combination of art and science. And for a long time, our industry has been very focused on the science piece of that equation. And I think because of some of the headwinds and challenges that we're facing around consumer privacy laws and the agendas that are really driving some of those consumer privacy shifts, even outside of legislation, but some of the big shifts in our industry, it just means that we're revisiting the art a little bit more, I feel like. And so that really is the way that I think we tend to think of it, or especially I tend to think of it from a planning perspective, is most of the consumer growth that you're seeing in AVOD and in SVOD is driven by programming, and it's driven by content and storytelling. And all of the major players in this space are making big investments around content right now. And, whether it's Tubi leveraging that Fox catalog that they have access to and then moving into original programming, or it's Roku with their brand studio investment, or it's, any of the players, they're all investing in content. And I think that as we have limits around some of the data targeting and or we have to be more creative and work around some of the limitations, contextual is going to become in vogue again, whereas it hasn't probably been as much of a factor for a lot of folks in a while. And things as simple as brand integration or sponsorship, or how you align with that content rollout and those key events, whether it's traditional events and tent poles or more program-driven events in terms of binge opportunities. That's a whole piece of the puzzle that I think people are revisiting more because of the challenges that we have on the other side of the house in terms of, third-party data and some of those kind of inherent challenges. And so as you look at that, as you look at the data side, the side of what we do, really the opportunity there is brands and media companies that have already positioned themselves really well from a first-party data standpoint are going to reap even more benefit. And then, really they'll be able to build a stronger foundation over the next, 6 to 12 months than folks who have not paid as close attention to that. And then, we'll work through the realities of some of the challenges that we're going to have to navigate there, whether it's, some of the pressures being put around IP address and other identifiers as we move towards kind of that holy grail of kind of this idea of unified measurement, which is probably considered a holy grail for a reason, because it'll be very hard to attain. But as an industry, I think we're moving that direction. But I do feel like it's a very interesting time to be in this business, to understand that a lot of the things that I feel like we thought were pretty old school in terms of contextual content, brand alignment, et cetera, I feel like are still very relevant while we have this sideline conversation on how we continue to use data in a very smart way, more broadly across our industry, but also related specifically to AVOD.
And just as a follow-up on consumer experience and contextual, it's great. What about the issue of ad load, ad experience? Do you have some thoughts about how that's changing and some advice to the publishers on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think if you look at the fact that, we're seeing declines in time spent with ad-supported media, the reality is, and if you look at, CTV more broadly, there's a large chunk of consumers who are opting in for that SVOD experience or the subscription experience. And what's motivating that is really, ad fatigue, et cetera. And it's a sub-segment of the consumer audience that can afford those subscriptions. And then, I think we'll get to a point, and we already are in some cases, where there's subscription fatigue, right? And so there's definitely opportunity for SVOD and AVOD to play together. But I do think that how we think about ad load in general and how we think about calibrating that will be changing over the next few years pretty significantly, because the reality is there is probably content that that can afford to monetize, that can be monetized at a level that it permits less clutter. And so I think that it'll be interesting to see different media companies look at how they are, well, first of all, not they shouldn't be afraid to venture into this realm, and they are more of dynamic pricing in terms of a much more dynamic approach to how their inventory is valued and bought. But then on the flip side, I think that also has a role in terms of how they look at ad load as well. So I think those two things can kind of go hand in hand in terms of how they start to test and understand where that consumer tipping point is, so that it benefits advertisers, media companies, and ultimately consumers. For our agency, we've always had a mantra of major in the majors, and that's especially true in this space where, a lot of reach and scale is consolidated with key partners. But then outside of that, we've looked really closely at where are the opportunity areas and where's the white space where we can take advantage of the natural flexibility of programmatic buying to really supplement that and enhance it, and kind of achieve that ultimate goal of, finding those little bits of incremental reach that can make the difference in terms of fleshing out and pushing total reach against a plan. So, that's been a focus for us. And I think that that's going to be key for everyone as, these walled gardens become even more of a reality. I think that we used to have kind of this utopian ideal about what the marketplace might look like. And the reality is, there are a few key players that really have a major stake in controlling their environment and controlling their inventory and their data. And so, the reality is I think that concentration will continue, and platform specific metrics and measurement will continue to be a reality for most of us. And then we will also have hopefully more tools in terms of unified measurement that are more industry standard. But I don't see that we'll ever get past or in the near future get past the need to really, as planners, understand what are the insights I can get specifically from each partner, and how do I ladder that up into informing my overall plan. And I think that's part of the reason that, algorithms will never completely replace us, right? Is that there is that need for us to understand individual and distinct data points, and to be able to pull those together and synthesize them into an overall strategy.